Hello everyone and welcome. In this video I'll be sharing my thoughts on Fear the Walking Dead Season 6 Episode 2. As is the norm with all my videos, I won't be holding back on any spoilers, so please do keep that in mind. Anyway, without further ado, let's begin. 2020 has been a bit of a weird year. First we've had a global pandemic and now we've had two very good episodes of Fear the Walking Dead in a row. I'm not sure which one of those statements is more shocking, to be honest. This episode of Fear the Walking Dead focuses on three of the original cast members in Strand, Alicia and Daniel as we reunite with them at Virginia's camp. Now, one of the best aspects of this episode in my mind is that all three of these characters act in a similar way to how they did back in the first 3 seasons of the show, rather than their annoying personality swapped versions of themselves that we saw in season 4 and 5. Alicia is shown to be clever. It's her who actually urges caution when Strand just wants to go and shoot all Virginia's rangers. It's her who says to him, we need to take a step back and think this through, otherwise we're just going to get ourselves killed. And we need to be a bit more clever about how we try and get out of our current situation. And I like that because it reminded me of the attitude Madison had when her and the Clarks reached the ranch back at the start of season 3. Because if I remember correctly, Nick was emotional and agitated and he just wanted to go out and kill everyone and attack the group straight away. Whereas Madison sort of said to him, no, we need to step back, we need to integrate in this group, we need to bide our time and then strike when the moment's right. And that shows a level of strategic thinking, and I'm glad that Alicia is taking after her mum, and it's nice that it reminded me of that. Alicia is shown to be strong as she dispatches walkers with ease in this episode, which I'm very glad to say because I can't remember if it was season 4 or 5. One of them had a story arc in which she couldn't kill walkers for some reason and spent all her time painting trees. And that was probably one of the worst things that they've done to her character. So I'm glad she's put all that behind her and is actually killing walkers and doing stuff and just not being an idiot, so that's good. Strand comes across as the same cunning bastard that he was pre-Fear reboot, cutting deals with Virginia and not telling the rest of the group about it. There's also a scene in which he grabs a guy called Sanjay and stabs a knife in his leg and basically leaves him for walker bait, and he does this because he wants to cause a distraction so Alicia and Charlie can get away, and he basically sacrifices Sanjay. The walkers go for him and eat him instead, and Alicia and Charlie survive. And the best thing about this is that Alicia and Charlie stumble across Sanjay's body and they sort of say, oh no, Sanjay's dead, what happened to him? And then Strand just says, oh, it's what he wanted, I tried to stop him. And that, for me, that's brilliant because that just shows Strand being the morally ambiguous character that he was back in the first 3 seasons of the show. That's what I like about Strand. He does have a darker side to him, even though he will kind of look after his friends. He is unpredictable, and that's what I want to see from him. I mean, this is the same Strand who made a deal with Proctor John back in the end of season 3, just so it would basically serve himself and he would be better off. And it's the same guy who shot Daniel in the face. So Strand has always been a bit of a snake character, a bit of a slimy bastard, and that's what I like, and I'm glad that he's back to his old self in this episode. And then we come to Daniel, whose role in this episode is very strange to say the least, but the ending does explain it and in my opinion makes it all worthwhile. So when we first meet Daniel, he is cutting Virginia's hair and Alicia and Strand are in the same room as him and he doesn't recognise them. He has a mark on his head and it looks like he's been hit or assaulted, and Virginia makes a comment about memories being fragile or words to that effect, and you put 2 and 2 together and it seems like her or her people have done something to Daniel to make him lose his memories. Now Daniel keeps his act up throughout most of the episode. Charlie tries to talk to him and again he doesn't recognise Charlie either, although to be fair, if I was in his position and Charlie was trying to talk to me, I'd probably fake a brain injury just so I could get out of having a conversation with her as well. Anyway, come the end of the episode, Morgan shows up, and due to how convincing Daniel was this episode, I assumed he wasn't going to recognise him either, but as soon as Morgan arrives, he drops his act and shakes his hand and says, oh, hi Morgan, I suspected that Virginia was after you. So he's obviously up to something. Daniel is up to something big, and it must be something pretty massive if he isn't even going to tell Strand and Alicia about it. I mean, maybe he doesn't want to get them involved because he sees it as him trying to protect them, but yeah, if he won't even tell Alicia, who's very close to him, I mean, I know he always has trust issues with Strand anyway, which makes sense seeing as the dude shot him, but yeah, the fact that he only tells Morgan tells me he's got something big planned up his sleeves. I've been begging for Daniel to have more to do in this episode. I mean, he's one of the best characters in the first 3 seasons, and if you're one of these people who's only watched Fear the Walking Dead post Morgan, you wouldn't even know what he's capable of. I mean, there's one episode, I think, in season 3 where he literally like guns down an entire base of people, and which is like out of John Wick. And yeah, he's such an amazing character, and I'm glad he's been given more to do, and I just hope that the writers have something big planned for him. So fingers crossed. But overall, I liked how all 3 of the main characters were represented this episode. I liked everything they had to do, and again, it reminded me of how they were when we first met them back in season 1 to 3. So yeah, all good. Anyway, let's talk about the actual plot from this episode. The opening begins with Virginia's soldiers in front of like this shutter, and behind it is a group of walkers, and Virginia wants them to clear it out. So they pull up the gate gets stuck about a quarter of the way up, and all these people, all the prisoners start being sucked under by the walkers and being dragged under and obviously being eaten and then killed. Now this scene is a bit over the top, but it does give off serious horror vibes. It's like something out of Alien. It kind of reminded me of back in season 3 when, I think it's the premiere, where the walker grabs the guy through the wall, and one of Troy's men, and eats him. And it's that kind of horror that is missing from the show, because yeah, seeing them being dragged under and screaming, that was pretty terrifying, and I liked it. I liked watching it. And one of Virginia's rangers actually gets trapped under the gate, and with him screaming and trying to hold on, and then gets dragged inside. And that actually reminded me of a scene from the Resident Evil 2 remake. There's a moment in that when you go into the police station and one of the cops gets stuck under a similar kind of shutter. And I don't know if he gets chopped in half or if the zombie drags him underneath. I can't remember, but Resident Evil 2 Remake is a bloody good game. I'm not really big on video games anymore. I don't play them too much, but that's a very good game. And anything that reminds me of that in terms of horror is pretty good, in my opinion. After the prisoners fail their attempts to clear this room full of walkers, Virginia decides that she will now ask Strand and Alicia to do it as a punishment for them refusing to do their job which was assigned to them, which was cleaning buckets of shit. Strand and Alicia are then joined by Charlie and Janice, who are also prisoners. And to be honest, Janice was someone who I completely forgot about. I think, is she the sister of that annoying guy who died on the bridge last year, I think? But yeah, she's a character who I don't really care about. There doesn't seem anything wrong with her. She's not, irritating like some of the characters on Fear, but I honestly, if she never appeared again, it wouldn't really bother me. But yeah, she came back and Charlie came back, and we also got introduced to Dakota, who is Virginia's sister, and she seems like quite an interesting character, and she's obviously fond of the main protagonist on the show. She does go out of her way to try to help them, and she would have been one of my favourite characters on the show if she had let Charlie die rather than intervening. You missed your chance there, Dakota. What were you doing? Just let her die, and honestly, you'd have been the best character on Fear the Walking Dead. Supposedly, the reason as to why Ginny wants to clear out this area behind the shutter is because there's a weapon house behind it, and she wants to get her hands on it, basically. Now, I called bullshit on this from the start, because if there really was a weapon behind it, why is she getting prisoners to try and clear it out? Prisoners who are there with spears. She would just turn up with her rangers with guns and let them all come out and kill them. So for me, that didn't wash with me. And it turns out that I was right, because there was no weapon behind the shutters. Instead, the weapon was the friends that we made along the way. Alright, that's not the case, but there was no weapon. Instead, the weapon was the people themselves. So basically, Virginia's way of thinking was that if a group could clear out this group of walkers, then they would obviously be capable fighters and she could use them. So, it's a bit unorthodox way of finding people, but I thought it was quite an interesting twist, and I liked it. And after they do that, she basically says to Strand that you're all my soldiers now, and it's your job to keep everybody in line, Strand. Now, with Strand being Strand, I do worry that if the power he's been given by Virginia will go to his head, because as well as being in charge of getting everyone else to act in line and be her soldiers, he's also giving keys to the city or the town or whatever it is where Virginia's group are, and this now means he is afforded more privileges than the likes of Alicia. So we know Strand likes to live the life of luxury, he likes the comfortable life, so if he's in a situation where his life is pretty easy and he doesn't have to really worry about everything, there's not going to be much incentive for him to want to leave. And we know Strand will put himself ahead of other people, so if he's happy, then I don't think he's going to go out of his way to break out, or he's not really going to go and help Alicia or anyone else, because he's going to be quite happy having privileges and being one of Ginny's top-ranking men and having an easy life. So that's the way I see it anyway. This could potentially turn out to be the case. It's interesting that I'm thinking about this and what could happen, because in the last 2 seasons I haven't given a shit about his character or what he could do. So it's nice now that there is this question about what's going to happen and what's going to happen with Strand's character going forward. As I already mentioned, the episode ends with Morgan reaching the camp and talking to Daniel, and there's a lot of other side characters who we haven't seen yet. You know, June, John, Al, and Dwight, amongst others. And I just hope that the episode centred on them can be as good as the last 2 we've had. I think next week's episode is centred on Al and Dwight. I mean, I like Dwight. I don't think he was given enough to do last year on Fear. I don't really think he should have crossed over anyway, but they didn't make the most of his character last year. So hopefully the next episode can do him justice, and hopefully it can make me like Al, because yeah, she's irritating. So fingers crossed that next week can be good as well. Despite enjoying this instalment, I do have 2 minor gripes with it, which I quickly want to mention. So firstly, when the protagonists are clearing the walkers for Virginia, they have them set up to come out in some kind of like cattle thing. I don't know what the correct terminology is for it, but it's something you'd see in like a cattle market, or what they use for the animals to transport them. Why can't I talk today? Anyway, they do that, and Strands then opens the door and lets them out and starts killing them. Now, they all had long-range weapons at this point. I don't know why they just didn't poke through the gaps and poke them in the head and kill them. I mean, maybe it's because at this point Janice was holding onto a makeshift barrier up the top, so maybe they just wanted them all out as quick as possible. I don't know, maybe if that's true then I guess I can overlook this, but part of me just did think, why are you not just stabbing them through the gaps? Why have you let them all out? But there you go, maybe they just wanted to do it quickly and that was the quickest option, I don't know. And secondly, there's a scene in which Strand goes into an RV and he honks the horn, and because he does that thinking that the noise will distract the walkers from Charlie and Alicia, but Sanjay says to him they will always choose fresh meat over a distraction. So he's basically saying that it's not going to work because the walkers have humans in their sight and they always go for them. Now, in theory, I actually like this as a rule in The Walking Dead. I do think that would make sense, but it's already been disproven so many times on Fear the Walking Dead and The Walking Dead previously, so it contradicts what we've seen in the past. I am rewatching The Walking Dead at the moment, and I've gotten towards the end of Season 6, and I've seen the episode, Season 6, Episode 9, in which the walkers come through Alexandria, and their way of dealing with the walkers in that episode is by distracting them. I mean, there's a moment when all the characters, their backs are against the wall, and there's a big herd of walkers coming towards them, and the walkers leave them alone because Daryl sets a lake on fire. So they all choose to go to that lake rather than trying to keep fighting the protagonist. So this idea that walkers will always choose fresh meat over a distraction, over a noise or a fire or a light or something like that, that's not true. It's just not true because that's been disproven on the show before. So like I said, I like this as a rule. I think it would make sense, but sadly it's already been shown not to be the case. But anyway, those minor complaints aside, this was another really good episode of Fear the Walking Dead, and yeah, I can't believe it. 2 episodes in and the season has been pretty damn good so far. So hopefully they can keep this up, because I am enjoying the show and I'm getting excited about watching it again, which isn't something that I've said for a long time. So there you go, another very good episode. Please let me know your thoughts below. Did you like this episode as much as I did, or did you dislike it? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you all very soon. Take care and goodbye.